It was a quiet morning when Emily drove her husband, Daniel, to the airport. The city was still half asleep, covered in a thin mist that softened the streetlights. She parked near the terminal, feeling a strange chill crawl down her spine. Daniel stood tall in his gray suit, suitcase beside him, looking every bit the confident businessman he always was. She helped him lift the luggage, her hand brushing against his sleeve. "Wait," she said softly, noticing the loose button on his jacket. "Let me fix this before it falls off." Daniel gave a small laugh, his deep voice warm but hurried. "It's fine, Em. If you stop me now, I'll miss check-in," he said, kissing her forehead quickly. The scent of cedar and tobacco lingered on him, a familiar comfort that suddenly felt distant. Emily forced a smile as he walked away, his slight limp from an old bike accident making her heart ache. Just before he disappeared behind the glass doors, Daniel turned and waved, smiling bright under the airport lights. But in his eyes, she saw something heavy, something final. Driving home, Emily tried to shake off the strange feeling. The city was waking up, cars honking, buses roaring past. Her phone buzzed in her purse, a message from the bank flashing on the screen. She glanced and froze. A huge amount of money had been transferred to their joint account, far more than anything she'd ever seen. The memo read only 2 words: contingency fund. Her fingers trembled as she pulled over, staring at the message. A cold sweat ran down her back as unease took over her chest. Daniel had always labeled transfers as investment or living expenses, never contingency. It was a word that carried fear. Emily whispered to herself, "What are you planning, Dan?" Her heart wouldn't settle, but she tried to calm down. Maybe it was just a business precaution, she told herself. That night, she went to bed restless, unable to stop replaying his last wave at the airport. Then, close to midnight, her phone rang sharply on the nightstand. The screen showed her boss's name from the homicide division. She answered, her voice groggy. "Hello, this is Dr. Emily Reed." There was a pause on the other end, followed by a heavy sigh. "Emily," her boss said quietly, "you need to stay calm. They found your husband." Her blood froze. "Found him?" "He's in London," she said quickly. The line went quiet for a second, then came the words that broke her world. "He was found dead, in a mansion in Westchester." The phone slipped from her hand. Her breath caught in her throat. She knew she had to see him, with her own eyes. Emily's car tore through the night like a bullet. The empty highway blurred under the pale glow of streetlights. Her heart pounded so loudly she could barely hear the radio static. When she finally reached the mansion in Westchester, flashing red and blue lights danced across the overgrown driveway. She parked crookedly and stepped out, her legs trembling so hard she almost fell. Officers and forensic techs moved quietly behind yellow tape. One young officer stopped her gently. "Dr. Reed, maybe you shouldn't go in," he whispered. She looked him straight in the eye, her voice cold and sharp. "Move aside, officer. I'm his wife, and a medical examiner." Her badge glinted under the police floodlight as she ducked under the tape. The smell hit her first: strong liquor, sweet perfume, and burnt smoke. The once beautiful living room looked like the aftermath of a wild party. Empty glasses, clothes, and broken bottles lay everywhere. But none of that mattered. Emily's eyes were locked on the open bathroom door where the flash of a camera kept going off. Inside the wide white tub lay Daniel, head tilted back, eyes closed as if asleep. He was naked, his skin a strange cherry pink. A woman's limp body was beside him, her long hair sticking to his shoulder. Emily froze, the world spinning around her. Her hands shook as a forensic tech lifted the woman's hair for a photo. The face beneath made her knees buckle. It was Chloe, her own cousin. "No!" Emily gasped, her voice breaking. She called him Uncle Dan. "This can't be real." Behind her, whispers filled the room. "Drug overdose," one officer murmured. "Affair gone wrong," another said. But Emily's instincts as a medical examiner pushed through the grief. She slipped on a pair of gloves and knelt beside the tub. Her eyes scanned Daniel's body. Something was wrong. The lividity, the dark red patches that show how blood settles after death, was all on his back. If he had died sitting upright in the tub, the stains would have been on his lower body, not his back. Her breath caught. "He was moved," she whispered. She stood up and faced the room, her voice trembling but firm. "This is a staged scene," she said. "He didn't die here. He was killed somewhere else and placed in this position later." The room went silent. Even the cameras stopped clicking. Just then, a sharp rhythmic sound of high heels echoed down the hall. Emily turned as a woman in a black silk dress stormed in. The air grew colder. A slap cracked across her cheek. "You curse!" the woman screamed. It was Eleanor, Daniel's mother. Emily staggered back, her cheek burning from the slap. "Eleanor!" she gasped, trying to steady her breath. The older woman's eyes blazed with fury. "I warned my son you'd bring ruin to this family," Eleanor shouted. "Now look what you've done. He's dead in a bathtub with some girl." Her voice echoed against the marble walls, sharp enough to cut glass. Behind her, Daniel's brother Mark adjusted his glasses calmly, his expression unreadable. Emily swallowed hard, trying to stay composed. "There's more to this than what it looks like." Eleanor's face twisted with rage. "Don't you dare speak another word," she hissed. "Do you want the world to see your husband's body cut open like some criminal? Do you want this company's stock to crash tomorrow?" Emily clenched her jaw, her fingers trembling. "I'm not thinking about the company," she said quietly. "I'm thinking about the truth." Mark stepped forward, his calm tone dripping with condescension. "Eve, you're emotional," he said, placing a file on the table. "You should see this before you embarrass yourself further." He spread the photos across the table. Each image stabbed Emily's heart. Daniel and Chloe, at a hotel eating dinner, sitting close in a car. Blurry but suggestive. "You see," Mark said smoothly. "They've been together for over a year." He postponed his flight to meet her. Drugs, passion, tragedy, it happens. Emily stared at the photos, her tears hot and bitter. "You faked these," she said through clenched teeth. "Daniel wasn't like that. And Chloe, she was a child to us." Her voice cracked, but her eyes burned with defiance. "Eve, denial won't change facts," Mark said, feigning sympathy. "Let's keep this quiet for everyone's sake." He took out his phone and made a call on speaker. A cold, commanding voice came through. "Release the body to the family immediately. No autopsy. Handle it privately." The detective looked helplessly at Emily. "I'm sorry, ma'am. The family has refused examination." Emily's lips trembled, but she said nothing. She watched as men zipped Daniel into a black body bag, her entire world disappearing behind that cold, final sound of the zipper. She stood frozen as they carried him away, her fingers digging into her palms. The men whispered about saving the company's name, as if her husband's life were just a public relations problem. Mark met her eyes briefly and smirked. "You've lost," his expression seemed to say. Emily's chest burned with grief and rage, but her mind was already turning. They thought they'd silenced her. They thought they'd buried the truth with Daniel. But they had no idea who she was, or what she was about to do. The next morning, the private funeral home stood silent in the pine forest. Everything smelled of wax and wood polish. Emily walked in alone. Eleanor sat in the front row, her hands clasped around prayer beads, her face unreadable. Mark was outside smoking, talking to a lawyer about inheritance. The morticians had stepped out for a break. Emily looked at the casket, her pulse quickening. She whispered, "If they close this lid, everything dies with you." Pulling a small scalpel from her sleeve, she approached quietly. Daniel's body lay still, his face too peaceful, too perfect. Emily's tears blurred her vision, but she wiped them away. "I'm sorry, my love," she whispered, slicing a small lock of his hair and sealing it in a bag. Then she clipped one fingernail and hid it in another. The soft snip echoed in the empty room. She scanned his skin under a tiny flashlight, searching for any clue. Then she saw it, a faint red dot behind his left ear, almost invisible. Her hand trembled. "An injection mark," she whispered. "They killed you." Footsteps echoed behind her. "What are you doing?" Mark's cold voice filled the room. Emily spun around, quickly tucking the samples into her blouse. Her face twisted with fake grief. "I was just straightening his tie," she said softly. "He always liked to look neat." Mark's eyes lingered on her chest, suspicion flashing in them. Then he smirked. "If you're done, get out. The service is starting." She nodded weakly and walked past him, her hand pressed over her heart. Inside her blouse, the truth lay hidden, hair, nail, and photo. She stood behind the thick glass as the casket slid into the furnace. The flames roared to life, and her heart shattered. The fire wasn't just burning Daniel's body. It was destroying every trace of evidence that could have cleared his name. Eleanor dabbed her eyes dramatically, while Mark stood stiff, his jaw set, his eyes cold. "Rest, Daniel," Emily whispered, gripping her chest. "I'll finish what you started. I'll make him pay." As smoke curled into the gray sky, she made a silent vow. She would not stop until justice was done. That night, rain poured across the city like a cleansing storm. Emily parked behind an old lab building, her coat soaked through. Dr. Peterson, her retired mentor, opened the door, concern etched across his face. "Emily, what's happened?" he asked. She handed him the small evidence bags, her voice breaking. "I need your help, sir." "Quietly. Please." Without another word, he began his tests. Hours later, he looked up from the microscope, his eyes wide. "My God, Emily," he whispered. He was injected with succinylcholine. Someone paralyzed him alive. Emily's heart stopped. "Paralyzed alive," she whispered, her hands trembling. Dr. Peterson nodded solemnly. "It's a muscle relaxant used in surgery. Too much, and the victim can't move or breathe, but they're fully awake." Emily's stomach twisted as she pictured Daniel's final moments. His eyes open, trapped inside his own body, watching his killer. "Whoever did this new medicine," Peterson said gravely. "And they made sure it would disappear fast in the blood." Emily clenched her fists. "Then they didn't expect me to take hair and nail samples." The next morning, Emily sat alone in a small cafe with her old friend Chris, a technician from the airport security department. "You're asking me to risk my job," he whispered, glancing around nervously. "Please, Chris," Emily said softly. "Just one look at the footage." He sighed and slid a laptop toward her. The video showed Daniel walking through the airport, tall, calm, suitcase in hand. Everything looked normal. Until Emily leaned forward. "Wait," she muttered. "He's wearing his watch on the wrong wrist." Daniel was left-handed. She froze the screen and zoomed in. The man walking through the scanner looked identical to Daniel, but something felt off. "Can you play the next camera angle?" she asked. Chris clicked, revealing a shot from behind. The man's walk was smooth, even too perfect. Daniel had a limp. Emily whispered, "That's not my husband." Chris frowned. "You mean someone took his place?" Emily nodded, tears in her eyes. "A body double. He never boarded that plane. They switched him before he reached the gate." At home, Emily analyzed the footage using Forensic Gate software. The results were undeniable. The double stride was flawless. No limp, no weight shift. Daniel's old video showed the opposite. Her heart pounded as she whispered, "He was kidnapped before takeoff." Replaying the footage again, she spotted something else. 2 men pushing a heavy laundry cart out of the VIP lounge. One of them wore a janitor's uniform. When he wiped his forehead, a flash of rose gold glinted on his wrist. Emily's breath hitched. "That watch. I know that watch." It was a Patek Philippe Nautilus. Expensive, rare, and unmistakably Mark's. She had seen it gleam on his wrist at every family dinner. "Oh God," she murmured, her voice trembling. He did it himself. The truth sank in like a blade. Mark had used a fake janitor's disguise to smuggle Daniel's body out of the airport. He had killed his own brother and staged the scene to destroy him. Emily stared at the paused frame, her reflection shaking in the laptop screen. "You killed him for money," she whispered. "But I'll destroy you with truth." She turned her focus to Chloe, determined to clear the girl's name too. Using her credentials, Emily accessed Chloe's medical records. Her breath caught as X-rays filled the screen. Old fractures, bruises, and concussions, all from accidents. "No," Emily whispered. "These are signs of abuse." Rib fractures in different healing stages told the story of long-term violence. A spiral arm fracture revealed repeated beatings. "You poor girl," she murmured, tears filling her eyes. "You weren't a mistress. You were a victim, and Daniel tried to save you." Following an address from Chloe's messages, Emily found her old roommate, Sarah, in a dim bar downtown. The young woman's eyes darted nervously. "You're Chloe's cousin?" she asked shakily. Emily nodded. "Please tell me what happened." Sarah took a deep breath. Chloe was trapped by a loan app. It was run by Mark's fake company. When she couldn't pay, he made her work for him, entertaining his rich friends. Emily's fists tightened. "So Daniel tried to help her escape." Sarah nodded, wiping her tears. "He died trying to save her." Sarah pulled something from her shoe, a small black USB drive wrapped in tape. "Chloe said if anything happened, I had to give this to you. She said only you could clear their names." Emily took it, her chest heavy. "Thank you," she whispered. "You've done enough. Leave the city. Stay safe." Outside, rain poured again, blurring the neon lights. Emily held the USB like it was a heartbeat. "You gave your lives for truth," she said quietly. "I'll finish what you started." Her phone rang. It was Eleanor, summoning her to the estate. At the Grand Reed estate, the room smelled of old perfume and money. Eleanor sat behind a marble table, a check and a plane ticket in front of her. $5 million, she said coldly. "And a condo in Vancouver. Sign this and disappear." The contract forbade her from ever speaking about Daniel's death. Emily stared at the paper, then activated her hidden recorder. "So money can bury murder now?" she asked softly. Eleanor's eyes narrowed. "He died because of his own sins. Don't make the same mistake. Take the money or lose everything." Emily lowered her head, pretending to give in. "I'll sign," she whispered, scribbling her name. Eleanor smiled faintly, believing she'd won. But Emily walked out with the check in hand and fire in her eyes. That night, she returned to their old home, standing before the life-size skeleton Daniel once gifted her. "Find our silent friend," his note had said. She pressed its spine, the skull popped open. Inside was a red SD card and a letter in his handwriting. "Expose them, Eve," it read. "Project Blue Ocean will destroy them all." And she would.